All right, this video is mainly for those who live in the United States, but I'm sure those around the country, or I should say around the world, probably have some interest in what I'm going to say. And given the title of this video, I think even foreigners outside the United States will find this to be interesting. You know, every president leading back to, I believe, Ronald Reagan, probably before that, had placed the title of Antichrist on every president. And I can remember the first time I heard that a president could be the Antichrist. It was Ronald Reagan. Now, as I said, there may be those who are listening right now who can say, well, I can remember when they were talking about Jimmy Carter and a few others. Well, I don't remember that. But I do believe very strongly that they were talking about Ronald Reagan during his time. And then from there on, different snippets and things that presidents were saying led many, and of course the advent of the internet, led to a whole host of conspiracy theories. Well, certainly anyone in the world could be the Antichrist ultimately, but he's going to have to come out of the European Union or in a gathering of nations that will ultimately be out of the European Union. And what I mean by that is that I wouldn't doubt that the 10-nation kingdom that the Antichrist will rule will be nations that will be in and around the European Union. You know, that's one of the fears of the world, that the European Union could very well implode, and that's not out of the question. Their financial situation, and of course COVID-19 hasn't helped, has spurred along this possibility. And frankly, there probably will be a series of catastrophic events that I think are coming in the future, and certainly do not think that we're out of the woods when it comes to pestilence, famines, earthquakes, and other natural disasters. Once we do get a vaccine, I do believe we probably will get a vaccine for the COVID-19 virus, but there's more to come. But what you should be seeing from this COVID-19 virus is that this is just one of many signs that are taking place simultaneously here in these last days. And when I say last days, I mean when Israel becomes a nation again, and they are in fact trying to bring about a covenant with many. And if in fact the Palestinians do come back to the table, that would probably be the springboard that would bring about a covenant with many. Now, of course, Israel already has an underlying secret covenant with a lot of different countries. But I think it'll come out into the open and become a big deal if the Palestinians decide to come back to the table. And I don't doubt that's going to happen. It's just a matter of timing. And I believe it all is being timed with what I believe to be the rapture of the church. That will be soon. But when it comes to being the Antichrist, that will be a person that will ultimately be chosen by God to carry out his ultimate plan, which is to bring as many people to the Lord in the 7-year tribulation period as possible. And when that has ended, he will then have Satan select the Antichrist that God has chosen. And Satan will unknowingly do so. And that person undoubtedly will be a person who's not a Christian. So that leaves the door wide open to whomever God ultimately does choose to be the Antichrist. Now, there's no doubt that I believe that this person will be a person of power during the end times. But it certainly wouldn't shock me a bit if 10 nations broke away from the European Union because of the exuberant amounts of debt, the lack of the ability to make policy in a uniform way, and the lack of a single leader. And frankly, that is what is one of the European Union's major problems, is they lack a single leader who can make a single decision. So I certainly wouldn't rule out some type of 10-nation conglomerate that comes together under the leadership of one person. And, like I said, that could very well happen with these 10 European nations and the United States. Or possibly, I guess the math would be a little better if it was 9 European nations. Or to even make it simpler, probably 8 European nations, Britain and the United States coming together to form this 10-nation kingdom ruled under Donald Trump. So yes, it is possible that he could become the Antichrist during the last days. But the key to all this would be that he would have to be here, and he can't be a Christian. And of course, that in and of itself opens up a whole new can of worms, because a lot of people do believe that he is a Christian. I'm not going to debate that one way or the other. I hope and pray that our president is a Christian, and then when the rapture of the church does take place, that he will be taken as well. And one thing I need to make clear is that even though I believe the rapture of the church is near and it can happen at any moment, we have to look at this election as if we're going to be here as Christians. I was just watching a black commentator, make his analysis on what he thinks is going to happen in November of 2020. And of course, he came out and stated that he believed that Donald Trump would win in a landslide. And if common sense is the obvious direction of this election, sure, that's exactly what should happen. Well, of course, there are those who believe that Donald Trump is a bad president, but they can't seem to come across any one reason beyond the fact that they believe that he's just some awful person of some sort and that he is dividing the country. Well, of course, the truth of the matter is that he's only awful to those who don't like him. He's only divisive to those who didn't vote for him. You know, I got on the internet a couple of months ago, I believe it was, and someone asked a question of me as to why I like Donald Trump. And of course, they were an Obama fan. So I started it off by saying when Obama was running for president back, I believe it was 2008, certainly I didn't vote for him, but when he became president, he became my president. I made it known to these people who I was talking to. And, you know, there was probably a half dozen or so that had commented. And, you know, I started off by saying that I didn't vote for President Obama, but you know what? When he became president, he became my president. I believe he did a lot of harm while he was in the office of president for those 8 years. But still, I did pray for him, and I did consider him to be my president. And certainly during those 8 years, the country was no less divided while he was president than it is today. But you know, a funny thing happened when he became president. I went on about my business and did what I had done before he became president. And certainly, as I said, I continued to pray for him and went on with life. And yes, he was our president. But the question I asked these half dozen or so individuals was this right here. During those 8 years that President Obama was president, I claimed him as my president. Now that President Trump is the president, will you now claim and acknowledge that he is your president? And you know, I've asked this question not only at that time, but also on numerous occasions, and not one single Democratic individual emailed me back or commented back that, yes, I will claim President Trump as our president. So to this day, I haven't heard that yet. And if you are a Democrat listening to this right now and you want to say this in the comments section, I'd like to hear it. But the truth of the matter is he is our president and deserves that respect. And of course, the argument is, well, I can't claim him as our president because he's so divisive. No, he's not divisive at all. If you get on board with his plan, he's not divisive. And you know, that's the problem with the Democrats or with the left, and that is if their man or woman does not get in the office of presidency, they will do their best to try to destroy the Republican president and make it sound like he's so divisive and only a Democrat can bring the country together, which we know that's not true. But they'll do that for as long as the president is in office. And you know, the only reason why they're doing that is because they cannot attack his accomplishments. And you know, as a Christian, I've had a number of people tell me, well, you know what, President Trump hasn't done anything. He's such a liar. I say, well, what's he lied about? And they'll go on to announce some things that I care nothing about. Meaning, as a Christian, the things that I care about, number one, did President Trump promise that he would elect pro-life Supreme Court judge? In fact, he's not only done it once, he's done it twice. And right now, he's in the process of selecting hundreds of pro-life lower court judges as well. So that's number one. Then my number one reason why I voted for him was that reason right there. And he's kept his promise on that to the T. And in fact, he's gone beyond that and elected the lower court judges. Secondly, he said he's going to build the wall. Well, he didn't lie about that. He did that. He also said that he would get us out of bad trade deals, and certainly he has done that. Again, he didn't lie about that. He said that he would bring our economy back, and it would be greater than it's ever been, and certainly he has done that. The stock market has skyrocketed. And the only thing that has slowed it down and brought it to a screeching halt is something that's beyond his control, which is, of course, this pandemic. But common sense tells me that if I want this economy to come roaring back, and there have been signs over these last few months, even in the midst of the pandemic, not only in the stock market, but also in the jobs reports. And of course, the unemployment rate, which is lower than they ever dreamed it would be in the middle of this type of pandemic. But if we have any hope at all of our economy to come roaring back, it's going to be through a person who built it the first time. And I'm not saying that as a Republican, because really I'm not a Republican. I vote for whoever is going to help lead the way to reverse the scourge. This is really the problem with America. We have a scourge a scar on our chest due to taking God out of the schools, but mainly because we've taken a gift which God calls life. Anyone who ever has a child, that's a gift from God. And we've taken this gift and we have murdered it 60 million plus times over the years, and basically I think at a rate of about 1 million a year. But this is a gift from God, and you are spitting in the face of God when you take that gift and you kill it. But getting back to the main topic, has President Trump lied? Not as far as I'm concerned, he hasn't, because he's promised, and that's just a few of the promises that he's kept. I've watched various news programs where they have just rolled Trump's accomplishments across the screen, and there's been a vast amount. But those are the main ones that I care about as a Christian. And frankly, whether you're a Republican or you're a Democrat, these are the things that should burn very, very, very brightly in your mind as to why you need to vote for the person this November, not only in the presidential election, but also in the representatives, the Senate, and other election topics for which the Bible says that you should vote for. And I can tell you this right here, that there's no way that God is going to sanction a person to be a leader of any country that allows and supports the death and murder of the unborn. Now, of course, he may allow it to happen. If that's what you want, then he's going to give it to you. He will turn this country over to a reprobate mind if in fact that's what we want. But if we want our land to be healed and we want God to be back in our country's government, which we do, then we're going to have to vote. And don't think for a second that this is going to be a landslide by Trump, so you don't have to come out and vote. Common sense told me that in 2018, when we elected new senators and new representatives, that because of the economy was doing such a good job and other things were happening in this country that were positive, there was no way that the House of Representatives would turn Democrat. Well, that's exactly what happened, so you can't leave anything to chance. That's the problem right there, is even if President Trump does win re-election, if the House or the Senate or both turn Democrat, it's going to be very difficult for him to get anything done. So don't leave anything to chance. Get out and make your voice be heard, even if it's one vote at a time. And certainly my message is this right here. I don't care which way you vote, whatever the case may be, you need to vote exactly how you know that the scriptures would tell you to vote. And we need to get off this division argument. The only division there is out there between Democrats and Republicans is this right here. A Republican president is in power and a Democratic president isn't. And as long as that's the case, there's going to be division because the left simply can't accept it. And if the left would just finally say, you know what, I don't like Donald Trump, but he is our president, that division would be over. And of course, many of you are saying, well, you're just a Trump supporter. No, I'm a supporter of anybody who will come the closest to aligning with my biblical principles. I can tell you right now, if in fact the Republican nominee was not a pro-life candidate and running on that platform, I certainly would not vote for him. And if a Democrat was, I'd vote for the Democrat. So my message to you here is that get out and vote. Don't be lazy or complacent. Get out and vote, and make sure you vote for all the candidates that are on the ticket who represent your Christian values. And if you support or you like this video, I'd ask you to subscribe, like, and also hit the notification button so that you can get more of these videos as they come out. Well, I thank you for listening. Well, this is Terry Malone with the Calvary Prophecy Report.